Hello, hello. Welcome to the Market Flowers Paint Along. My name is Allie, and if you are new here, I just want to say welcome. I do these live demos every Monday at 5 Eastern. And I paint something a little bit different each week. We've been working in a floral series for spring, which is always fun. As you all are jumping in to the demo here, please say hi, introduce yourself in the comments. Everybody always likes to see who is here and where you are watching from. We have people all over the world that watch these every week. Which is awesome. I love it. So this week we're going to paint a bouquet of flowers that I picked up at our farmers market here in Chattanooga last weekend. They were so beautiful. I took a ton of photos and I asked you guys to help me decide. I put out a little survey and it was image C that was the winner. So if you voted for image C, we're painting your flowers today. So I hope that you will enjoy that, but all of the choices had a lot of votes. So we might just end up doing a few more from that survey. So how this works is these demos are free to watch. But if you would like to paint along with me, I also offer a download of the outlines. So if you have your download, you've already prepped your panel and you have the outlines on your panel like mine, you can always purchase the download on my website, alliekstudio.com, and they're just $10. So the download includes a link to the replay, so you can come back and watch this on your own time if you want to. And it also includes the paint colors and the traceable template. Hi Diane, hi Dawn, hi Janine, hi Helen, hi everybody. Thank you all for joining me today. Okay, so why don't we get started? All right, hi Judith in Colorado, nice to see you, and Laura, hi everybody. Hi Heather. All right, okay, let's get going. Let's get started. All right, so I'm gonna move the camera in so that you can see what we are painting here. And I like to be able to show you kind of what my reference image looks like, what my palette looks like. That looks pretty good. Hopefully our light will work with us today. We had some weird glares last week as the light changes during the demo, but this looks pretty good. I think we're good. All right, so I've put the outlines on my panel and I used transfer paper to transfer them. But if you don't have transfer paper, you can also just like color the back of the printout and then trace over it, and it'll leave, you know, that graphite. You could use chalk, whatever you have on hand. And then I have you paint over the outlines with a skinny little script liner brush like this. And we paint over them with a light purple color, really any neutral. But I like to use this light purple. I make this from alizarin crimson, Payne's gray, and white. And I am using golden fluid acrylics because these are what I love. And I give a list of the paint colors that I'm using. But if you don't have golden paints, don't worry about it. Just use what you have and you can kind of compare your colors and just make do with what you have. Just paint. Just take time to paint. That's what I say. Hi, Jean in New Jersey. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to, let's see, pull up the comments here on my computer so I can be watching as you all are making comments. All right, hi Kay in Florida. All right, hi Judy. Okay, so we've got the outlines on here, and then our first step is going to be to start washing in the shadows. So I have a pretty like standard formula. So if you've been to other paint-alongs, I'm sure you've noticed that we kind of follow the same recipe every week, regardless of what we're painting. So I always start with having those outlines in, and then I start by washing in the shadows. And I I use this recipe of alizarin crimson and Payne's gray, watered down, just to start finding my shadows. So I am kind of looking at the darker 50% is what I'm going to start washing in here. Hi Elena in North Carolina, glad you made it. Okay, so we're comparing light versus dark, okay? So I like to kind of start up towards the top left. You don't have to, it's just kind of what I like to do. Okay, so up here I notice that the background is darker than the flowers. So I'm washing in the background. So just kind of working my way around the top, noticing which side of the line is light and which side is dark. And then I am doing the same thing on my piece. So these fluid acrylics from Golden, these kind of work similar to watercolor in this stage where we've got the paint really watered down and it has a lot of pigment in it. So we can use it really thin like this to wash in the shadows and it really just flows really nicely. So if you're using like a heavy body paint, you would need to definitely use more water. Okay, so up at the top, the background's all darker than the foreground. However, once we get to this little petal right here on this orange flower, it flips. There's a dark shadow here on this petal, and the flower becomes the darker side. The background is lighter. This little leaf here is also darker. So I'm not going to wash in the background super dark right up against that, but I am going to pick it back up again over here because we have a white flower there and the background is darker. So I'm just going to leave kind of a little halo of light around that one petal and leaf that were darker. All right, moving along, I see this bud is all pretty dark. That's easy to find, so I'm gonna wash that in. And if you guys have any questions during the demo, if you are one of the lucky ones watching it here live, feel free to drop those questions into the comments. And I'm doing better this time with answering them because I have my computer going next to me here that is feeding me your comments so I don't have to be looking into the screen. So I think it's gonna work a little bit better and hopefully I'll be able to pay attention to what you all are saying because sometimes I miss them. But even if I do miss them, I usually go back through the comments after the demo and try to answer anything that you guys have to say. Okay, going back into our painting, I'm gonna look and see this bud here is kind of dark. So I'm gonna wash that in. And this whole flower right here is pretty dark. So I think I'm just gonna wash over that whole thing right now. I'm just gonna do a thin wash over the whole thing because when I look at it, I see the whole flower as pretty dark. It does have this one highlight here. Maybe I'll work my way around that petal because I do see that petal is pretty bright. So when you're doing a bouquet with a lot of flowers in it, that's a lot going on, the key is to simplify. Simplify, simplify, simplify. If you try to do every little detail, it's just overwhelming, it looks too busy, you get frustrated, so I'm just generalizing these forms. This petal right here at the top is lighter, so I'm gonna leave that little edge, and I'm going to pick up the dark in the background behind it because that stem is also bright and the background is dark. So I'm going to push that dark. And let's keep moving along. Okay, so this daisy is all pretty bright. We're gonna wash the center in a little bit darker because that's darker than the white. Same thing on this daisy. We're gonna wash that center in. And then we're going to wash in the background around these daisies dark. And that makes the daisies become white. So as we're doing all of this is all the underpainting and kind of laying all this groundwork down before we start worrying about color. That is what is going to make our painting go more quickly, go more smoothly, help us to make sure we're keeping our values correct by laying all this down in the beginning. Because right now the color doesn't matter. Right now we're just looking at light and dark. So we're just calling everything the same color. And a little tip I can give is if you are doing if you're doing this on your own, kind of following my technique, you may want to print your image out in grayscale in this stage. I think that kind of helps because then you're not getting distracted with the colors. We're just gonna go over that stem. I need to make a little more of my wash of alizarin crimson and Payne's gray. All right, doesn't matter if this wash is exactly the same color. Okay, so this lime green stem right here is pretty bright. So I'm gonna wash this purple flower behind it in darker. I had a little too much paint in my puddle. I need to water it down a bit. This stem is dark. I'll push this dark. There we go. I'm gonna do this dark here too around the center of that red one is kind of bright. Do this dark. Okay. And then we've got a white flower here that's got some green leaves in front of it. I want to keep this stem bright because that's that lime green. So I'm going to wash in dark behind it. And over here too, we're going to just kind of loosely put that bit in. Some of this is bright because there's that white flower there, but I'm just gonna put some color in there. Okay, moving along. This is all pretty white, kind of dark up here. This is a dark shape here. And we've got some more dark up here. Okay, let's put some tone into the center of this flower. This is dark here. I'll push that a little darker. Okay, and then down in the vase here, there's just a couple areas of highlight. So I'm just gonna kind of paint around those areas of highlight, and I'm going to wash pretty much everything else in. So there's a little window there, little window there. The rest is gonna get washed in. Now, there's this edge, this diagonal line here, because I took this photo of these flowers sitting in front of my garage door, so that's the garage door. I'm not gonna include that line. I don't think it really helps the painting. I feel like it's a little bit awkward, so I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna let my background kind of be like a general color. So I'm not gonna worry about that at all, and I'm gonna call this area all pretty light, because we've got dark background up here. I'm gonna call this background light. Put a little bit of dark around that stem there. Okay, now we're going to go back and push our shadows, some of our shadows, a little bit darker yet, because we really kind of generalized a lot of these shapes. And so now we're gonna start by pushing the darkest areas darker. So we will go back with the same two colors, alizarin crimson and Payne's gray. And now we're just gonna have a little less water in it so that we can make a darker color. And we're gonna look for the areas that look darker. And I should mention, I'm using a flat tip brush, and I'm actually using a number 5. This is kind of a bit big. I maybe should have done a 3, but it's okay. We have a lot of ground to cover tonight with all these flowers, so I'm gonna work with some bigger brush strokes. So the first dark area I see is the center of this flower. So I'm going to just go real dark in there because I want to make some progress quickly here. And I'm not worrying about, outlining all these shapes exactly the same. Finding the shadows in the exact same places is what I've outlined. I'm kind of looking at, saving those little highlights on the petals there, but I'm not trying to get every little petal in exactly the same because there's no reason for that and it would take too long. Okay, so we'll just push that dark and keep moving. Okay, so the center of this one's pretty dark. And we've got a dark blob right there. Got some dark on this little bud up here. Oh, we didn't really do the right side of this bud. It's kind of dark. And then this one's dark. So when I'm painting, I like to definitely work my way around the whole painting. I don't just sit and paint one flower. And this is how I approach every painting I do. I like to just kind of work my way around. And I think that brings unity, and it also helps me to paint faster. Because if you're hung up on just this one flower or one part of your painting, you drive yourself nuts. And you just sometimes overwork it. So there you go. Okay, so I'm just looking for the darkest shapes. And I'm looking for the leaves and the petals that I notice right away, the ones that really jump out at me, because those are the ones that are going to be the most important to include. This red flower here is going to be a bit tricky to illustrate in this piece because it's two-toned. I have to think about how I'm going to do that because our highlights are going to be more of a yellow tone. So it'll be fun. We'll be able to do it. It'll be fine. All right. I think we're almost ready to do our underpainting wash. I'm going to put a few darks down in the vase here too. I'm gonna look for some of the darker shapes in the vase. So far we have just used alizarin crimson and Payne's gray. We haven't done anything else. And I probably have more of the alizarin crimson in, but if yours is more of a blue tone, don't worry about it. This doesn't matter. All right. Okay, so we want this to be dry now before we wash over it with a complementary color underpainting. So I will wave my magic wand and make this all dry really quick. But if you are working on your own, if you're watching this to the replay, you might want to just step away for a few minutes and let the acrylic do its magic and dry quickly so that you can make sure that your underpainting is totally dry. But if you're painting live with me, which I always love, then you'll just keep going and it'll be fine. Maybe just grab any big globs that you see that maybe are really wet. Maybe I'll do a little more washing in while we wait over here. Okay, so let's talk about underpainting washes. So I like to do a complementary color, which means opposite on the color wheel, but I don't always do the true opposite. One rule I do pretty much follow is that if I'm planning to paint something in warm, then I lay down a cool color first. If I'm planning to paint something cool, then I lay down a warm color first. So I definitely have some favorites that I like to use as underpaintings. And if you've done many of these paint-alongs, you know that. So there's certain colors I do tend to use over and over again. And I think we're probably going to make the whole background a cool color because we've got this cool kind of purple brown up here. I'm probably just going to make that lighter as I go down. So I'm going to call the whole background cool, which means I'm going to do a wash of a warm color underneath. And one of my warm color recipes that I really like to go to is alizarin crimson and Hansa yellow opaque. Makes a nice burnt orange color. Let's see, Lydia is asking, are you able to keep your fluids from drying out between uses? Not really. So one tip I'll give Lydia is that I always put my fresh colors in these little wells on my palette. I get these palettes from Hobby Lobby. And so these small wells of fresh color pretty much always stay wet. They'll stay wet for at least an hour. These areas where I'm mixing, those will dry, but I guess because I'm working so quickly, so I'm able to have the paint stay wet as long as I need it. And if it does dry out, then I just go back and make more. Okay, so here's my burnt orange wash. And so I'm going to drop this into the background here. Okay, and up at the top, I'm gonna do it maybe a little heavier up at the top to make it a bit darker, because I know that the background will be a bit darker up at the top. Notice how I left this little bit of white down at the bottom? I think I've got some plans for that. I didn't want to do the burnt orange all the way to the bottom. So I left that. Let's see, we got a little bit of background there. Okay, so down at the bottom, I'm gonna make a brighter orange because I think it'll be kind of fun and it will kind of mirror the orange that we've got in this flower up here. So for that orange, I'm going to do Hansa yellow opaque and pyrrole red light. So that's gonna be a real bright orange. I think that'll just be kind of fun. All right. So I'm gonna put some of that down here. Let that be brighter. Okay. Now I'm gonna wash my brush out and let's see, what color should we do for the daisies? I'm probably going to paint the daisies in kind of cool too. I think I'm probably going to use like some phthalo blue and white in my daisies. So I'll probably wash those in a warmer color to begin with. Let's see, what warmer color do I want to use? I think I'm actually gonna go back to my burnt orange and just water it down, make it real, real thin. And I'm just gonna go over the white of the daisies. Ooh, that was too thin. And go over the white of the daisies. It's maybe a bit too thin. I may need to do another pass of that, but I'm just gonna put that in for right now. So this is still the burnt, or not burnt, it's the alizarin crimson Hansa yellow recipe. Okay, and now what color should I put underneath this big red flower? So under that, I think I'm going to do blue. So opposite of red really would be green, but I think I'm gonna do phthalo blue green shade, which is like a really nice deep teal. Let's see, Luann says you can't see the top left of the photo. Oh, thanks for letting me know. Let me adjust the camera a bit. Sometimes it looks like I have the whole thing on my screen, and then on the Facebook end, it gets cropped a little bit. So let's see, that looks like it's better. I'm gonna move it a little bit more. There we go. I want you to be able to see everything. Okay, thanks for letting me know, Luann. Okay, yeah, we're better. Okay, so I'm going to do phthalo blue green shade under, you know what? I'm gonna do that under all these worm flowers, just to simplify. So I'm gonna water it down a lot because phthalo blue is super, super intense. And going to wash this over all of these warm flowers here. Gotta catch it before that blue drips down over everything else. Okay, and we'll put that over our bright orange flower here too. Okay. Now, what else do we want to do? You know, I'm just going to keep going with that phthalo blue over some of those purples in the background too. I don't like to have too many different underpainting colors. We're going to do this over this white flower in the background just to simplify, but I am going to do more of a red tone over the green areas. So let's look at what's left that's green. I guess not a whole lot, but some that are green. And I think for my green, I'm going to use quinacridone magenta, which I love. I have just a little bit of it that was kind of already dried on my palette. Okay, quinacridone magenta is an amazing color. And I'm gonna wash that over some of these green areas. And I'm going to wash it over the whole vase because that's all green. Love this color. Okay, we'll do the stem. It's okay if these colors start to bleed together. It's just gonna be more fun. Don't worry about it. Okay. I think we've got some color everywhere, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we don't wanna leave any white. I think we're good. Okay. So now we want our underpainting to be dry before we start layering on top. So I need to pick the areas that are dry that I can start putting some color on. Looks like the background's pretty dry, so I think I'll start in the background. And now as I'm layering color on top of this underpainting, I'm not gonna thin my paint with water anymore. I'm going to thin it with glazing media. So I'm using Liquitex matte medium. You can use any brand. I just tend to buy this one. The Liquitex is usually a little cheaper than Golden, and I think that matte medium doesn't really matter what brand you are using. Okay, well, while we wait for this to dry, I am just going to take a moment and make sure that you guys all know about my free online class that I have right now. So I am doing a completely free class on painting the eyes. This is the sample that I teach in the free class. And I want you to go on my website and sign up for this free class. So it's different from a paint along. My online classes are super thorough with like step-by-step videos of every single brush stroke. And I want you to be able to check it out without having to pay for it. And you don't even have to put your credit card in. So if you click the sign up button here on my Facebook page, it'll take you there, but you can also go to my website, alliekstudio.com, and get yourself signed up for that free class, because I worked really hard on it and I want you all to be able to take advantage of it. I am launching a brand new full portraits class this summer, and so I put this little mini course together to keep you guys held over while you wait for that full online class. All right, so let's put the color in the background. I think we're ready. And so let's see, up at the top. Also, yeah, you guys give me a shout out if you are in that that mini course, the eyes mini course, because I've got hundreds and hundreds of you in there, and I would love to know if you're watching right now and you're one of the people in the free class. I'd love to see that. Okay, the color we're going to use in the background here is going to be Payne's Gray and some white and a little bit of, let's see, do I have Permanent Violet Dark, I think, or maybe that's a Alizarin Crimson. That's a Alizarin Crimson. That's not what I wanted. I wanted Permanent Violet Dark. Yeah, I'm gonna get myself some Permanent Violet Dark. I've heard that this color is hard to come by lately. I'm hoping that that will change very quickly. All right, so again, it was Payne's Gray and Permanent Violet Dark and some white. That's what I want to put in the background. And I'm gonna put some glaze in there. This is a real pretty purple. Okay, so I don't want to cover up all of my underpainting. I think I want this a bit lighter. That looks too dark. I'm gonna add a little more white to it. Sometimes I don't know until I get the color on the piece. That looks better. Okay, so I'm gonna leave some little bits of that burnt umber underpainting showing through. So I'm leaving some gaps between my brush strokes. And I can always cover up more later. You see how I'm kind of like laying these brush strokes down fat and quick, not worrying, not overthinking it. Okay. I'm gonna put a few down here, but then I'm gonna lighten it up. So now I'm gonna add some more white as we come down here. I need to get myself some clean white. All right, so now we've added white to it. So this is Payne's Gray, Permanent Violet Dark, and some white. And if you don't have any Permanent Violet Dark, you could put a little bit of that quinacridone magenta in and it would probably do the same thing. Okay, so this is a little lighter. And then I'm gonna go even lighter. So quite a bit more white now as we get down towards the bottom. See, I'm kind of mixing it and then I'm like offloading my brush. Okay, couple dashes down here. I want to leave some of that fun orange showing. I think that's all I'm going to do for right now. Maybe one right there. There we go. Okay, so now I think we should start painting the flowers, and that's probably all dry enough to layer over. So I'm going to switch to a smaller brush now. I'm going to go back to my 5, and I'm going to, I think, start with the daisies. And I'm actually going to, I'm gonna work with the same puddle that I've got going here because I think this will actually be kind of nice for some of the shadows in the daisies, but I'm gonna add a little bit more white to it to make it a little bit brighter. But this is kind of like a periwinkle purple blue color. And I think this will be good. Put a little glaze in there. Okay, so I'm just gonna drop some of this into the daisies and then we'll build up more highlights on the daisies after we just get some of this color in. But again, I'm leaving little windows of that yellow underpainting showing, but I'm also kind of thinking about chipping away at those outlines. We don't want to see those outlines. Those just kind of make the painting feel like not finished. So we just kind of work our way away from that. Cover those outlines up. Okay, got some color in there. Well, I've got this color on my brush. I think I'll go and put in some of the other white tones that I see. So there's this petal in the background here. It's a different flower, but we're just gonna drop it in with this white color. We've got another one coming up over here. So it's always easier to layer light over dark. That's why I kind of build up these dark bases, and then we can just really easily drop these lighter tones on top of it. It's hard to kind of paint your darks around highlights. It just like creates more work for yourself. And I like to make it easy. Okay, I think that's all the whites. We got one little dash, maybe right there. Okay, let's put the center yellows in the daisies. And I'm going to, use, let's see, I'm gonna use Hansa Yellow Opaque and some of that alizarin crimson. So we're gonna start with it being more of like a golden color, and then we'll add a highlight to it. But let's push it kind of dark first. Like I said before, we do dark first and then we add the highlight on top. So we'll get that in there. I'm gonna let that dry and then I'll come back to it. Okay, why don't we, let's put this bright orange flower in, because I think that's gonna look really cool. Okay, so let's make some bright orange from Pyrrole Red Light. Let's see, you got a dry spot. And Hansa Yellow Opaque. Pyrrole Red Light is a pretty strong color, so, well, Hansa Yellow Opaque is pretty strong too. I'm gonna put a little bit of mixing glaze in there to thin the two of them out so I can let some of my underpainting show through. Okay. Not gonna cover up all that fun blue though, because the orange is gonna really jump as it contrasts that. So I'm not painting the petals in perfectly, but I am kind of thinking about the direction of them. And after I build up some of this color, then I'm gonna let it dry and come back and build up some highlights, because right now it'll all be so wet that we really won't be able to build up any highlights. We have to let this first layer dry. That's another reason why I like to work the whole canvas, because then it lets me let the paint dry, come back, add the highlights. Hi Debbie, you're just joining us. Gonna paint later. Sounds good. Don't wait too long, because then you're less likely to do it, right? All right, so let's do this bright red flower in the background, and I'm actually gonna go in, I think, with just straight Pyrrole Red to start out with. Maybe with some glaze. I'm gonna do Pyrrole Red with a little bit of glaze in there. And just wash some color in there before we do the highlights. That looks pretty good, I like that. Okay, let's keep going. Let's start to put some highlights in this one that I think is gonna be kind of challenging. All right, because that's such a focal point that we really need to get this one in there. So how are we gonna do it? Well, let's start with the highlights that feel that kind of yellowy color. So I'm gonna go back to my Hansa Yellow and alizarin crimson combination and kind of make that burnt orange. And I think we'll use that to drop some of those in, but I think we're gonna need to add a little bit of white to it as well, because otherwise it's gonna be a little too intense. So this is alizarin crimson, Hansa Yellow Opaque, and some white, making kind of like a mustard color. And I'm gonna use this for some of those highlights. Okay, so we've got this one here that stands out at me first. I wanna save that blue. I don't wanna cover that all up. this color kind of shows up at the tips, right? But not all the tips, only some of them. Got another little bit right there. Got some petals coming in from there. Yeah, this one's gonna be interesting. Gonna give me a run for my money here. All right, so I wanna leave those dark areas real dark. I don't need to do highlights on all of them. Might do a little artistic license here and add a few more of these gold bits, because otherwise I'm afraid it's gonna get lost. All right. Now we need to put some kind of more reddish highlights. There's actually some kind of like pinky mauve highlights. So I'm going to make that from alizarin crimson and white. So alizarin crimson was one of those colors I couldn't get for a little while, but I just was able to order it from Dick Blick, I think. Yeah, from Dick Blick. So it's back in stock. Okay, so we're gonna do alizarin crimson and some white. I need some, oh, I do have white. This is gonna make kind of a nice mauve highlight that we'll use. I think we need to go brighter. I'm gonna add more white to it. Yeah. So it's pretty bright up here on some of these. Maybe just a couple little bits here, because overall the flower is kind of dark, but I definitely still need to build some texture in there. While I have this mauve on my brush, I see a petal back there that I think I'm gonna add a little of it on. Right there. Okay. Now I'm gonna come back with just that straight alizarin crimson, and I'm gonna push those dark areas darker. I think that'll help to give us more depth. So we're gonna look for these real dark areas. And remember how I said it's easier to paint highlights over dark? It's hard to put the darks on top. So this is kind of one of those situations where it's a little bit hard, but I need to push this darker to be able to make my highlights look brighter. So sometimes instead of making the highlights actually brighter, you just need to make the things around them darker, and that will do the trick as well. So it's kind of like this push and pull. Yeah, this is good. I like this. I might let this flower sit for a bit and come back to it. As I say that, but I'm still working on it. It's starting to get some dimension though. This alizarin crimson is helping. Okay, let's go in and find some green stems, because that's also gonna make a little more sense of what we've got going here. So let's pull out our bright greens. So I'm going to make that bright green with phthalo green, Hansa yellow opaque, and white. And we might need to mute it a little bit with some red too, but let's see here. We're gonna start with a phthalo green, Hansa yellow opaque, use some white. Yeah, we're gonna need to mute this down. So we're gonna mute it by putting a little pyrrole red in there. Red is always a good color for muting your greens. And I always encourage you to mute the greens a little bit, because otherwise they're just like too much. They give you a headache. And I love green, but I just don't like in your face green. All right. This looks like it's pretty good for the stems. Okay, so the stem I noticed first is this big fat one here. And then I noticed another one right here. See, I muted this green and it already still looks a little too bright. We'll come back with another pass and lighten it. Okay, then we've got this little stem going to this bud here, another one here. And down here. I like how this green looks on top of the magenta though. That magenta is such a fun color. Okay, maybe got a little bit over here. Okay, now we need to put some darker greens in too. So the darker green we need to make definitely more muted. We want it to be more like an olive green. So I'm going to add more of my phthalo green, but then I'm also gonna add like quite a bit more of the pyrrole red. Make it a nice dark olive green. So I'm using the same mixing recipe here, but adding more red and more green in it to darken it up. And I'll put this around here. We're still gonna go a notch darker with the greens. This isn't the very darkest green. We'll go one more darker. I think putting a little green around this red flower is gonna help to separate it. Oh, we've got an orange flower here that I didn't put in yet. We're gonna have to do that. I'm gonna make this green, even though it's not. Okay. And I'm gonna use some of this muted olive green and these stems going into the vase. We'll use some on the vase. I'd probably do some more like gray tones in the vase, but for the sake of time, I'm gonna put some of this green in and call it good. Okay, so then let's make another darker green. And I'm gonna make my dark green in a new spot because I don't want it to be contaminated with all of the white that I've got going in my puddle there. So I'm going to do phthalo green blue shade, pyrrole red, light, and let's see. Maybe just a speck of white. I don't think I'm gonna put any yellow in there. So phthalo green blue shade, pyrrole red light, just a speck of white. This is gonna be my darkest green. I'm gonna put a little glaze in there too. This is like almost a black. It's pretty dark. That's gonna start giving us more dimension though. So this real dark is kind of wrapping around where the daisies are, and that's gonna make the daisies feel brighter. Putting this dark around them. We've got this dark leaf here. I'm gonna put that in. Kind of like giving that one some nice shape. And drop a little bit of this dark into the base too. And this bud, we're gonna shape that back up with this nice dark. We kind of lost it a little bit. Again, this dark color is phthalo green, blue shade, pyrrole red light, and white. this leaf up here that's pretty dark. Give this some shape. All right, now I want to go back to the daisies and start pulling those out because those really are kind of part of our focal point. So I'm going to go back with a bright blue. I'm going to make it from phthalo blue, green shade, and white. And my whites are all kind of contaminated, so I'm going to get myself some fresh white. I'm going to find a fresh spot on my palette to mix this blue up. My messy, messy palette. Gotta check. Oh, I think over here. We're good over here. Oh, actually, I can use this one because I had phthalo blue and white in there before. So I'm gonna barely use any of the phthalo blue. It's gonna be mostly the white. I'm just gonna barely touch the phthalo blue and it'll turn my puddle to what I want. Mostly white. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Let me know if you're painting with me. I always like to see that. Okay, phthalo blue and white. I'm gonna look for my brightest petals. And since we've built up this base, I'll have a nice surface to kind of layer these on top of. Keep in mind that you don't want the petals all spaced out exactly the same. That petal's too blue. I need more white in there. Move to a new spot on my palette. I had too much blue in there. And kind of see about maybe doing these petals kind of as like one stroke and then kind of leaving it alone. Don't overthink it, but I do want it kind of rounded at the end. We'll fix that center when we do our yellow. And there. So remember, some of them are going to stay in shadow, so we're not going to put a highlight on all of them. Kind of clean up some of the edges. You can look nice and pretty. And we'll put some highlights on the one in the background here. Can be a little tricky to get the tips kind of just the right shape. Because we don't want it to be like a sharp tip. We want it to be kind of that nice rounded edge. All right, then I'll probably come back and push those even a bit brighter, but I'm gonna let this first layer kind of sit and dry. And I'm gonna put this bright blue in a couple places up here in the background where we've got some white flowers. Not worrying too much about the shapes of these. These are just kind of, you know, chunks of color. But starting to give some depth in the background. Let's see, Kay is asking what size is the painting. This is an 8x10, Kay. So the printout, the download with the outlines, it's scaled to fit an 8x10 panel. And that's pretty much what all of my paint-alongs are. When I first started doing the paint-along, some of them were 8x8, but since then I've pretty much switched to making them all 8x10. All right, let's put some dabs of brighter yellow in the center there. So I'm gonna use Hansa Yellow Opaque and some white and just a speck of Pyrrole Red to warm it up a little bit, or Pyrrole Red Light. So this is Hansa Yellow Opaque, Pyrrole Red Light, and white. And I'm going to just give a little dimension to the center of my daisy there. It's maybe a little bit bright, but it's okay. I probably shouldn't have done it so bright. I'm gonna make it a bit darker for the other one. So I'm gonna use a little more yellow, a little more red, a little less white on the other one. So this can be more orangey. I like that a little better. Okay. Now let's make a nice, really bright orange to put some highlights on this flower right here, and we'll drop this flower in the background here that we hadn't done yet. So we're gonna make this super bright orange using Hansa Yellow Opaque, Pyrrole Red Light, and just a speck of white now. So it's gonna be mostly Pyrrole Red Light and Hansa Yellow Opaque. We want this as bright as we can get it. And we'll lay that on top of these colors we already laid down. And this isn't gonna go everywhere. It's just gonna go in a few places where I see some highlights on the petals. And put a little more Pyrrole Red in there. Maybe it's looking a little too yellow for me. And I just want to vary it up a little bit. Make these kind of a little more red at the edges here. Yeah, I like that better. This one's kind of pretty strong. Okay, and then I'm gonna use this color over here and put this bright orange flower in here. Probably need to lighten it up a little bit at the edges, but we'll let that dry first. We've got some little dabbles here of some yellow in the center of this red flower, so I'll drop that in. All right, now what highlights should I do next? Let's put some highlights on this red flower. So we're gonna do Pyrrole Red Light and white. We'll just do those two. It's gonna make a nice kind of pink tone. Put some highlights in with that. And I have the highlights kind of at the edge here. Not everywhere, just in a couple places. Use a little more Pyrrole Red, make it a little more intense. I see a little bit on the other side of this bud that's right here. Catch the highlight on each side. Yeah, that is more of an intense red. That's more of what I was going for. Let's pull out some of those bright green stems a little bit more. I feel like they need to have a little bit more punch to them. So let's see, we're gonna go back to that recipe we were using before, which was Hansa Yellow Opaque, phthalo green blue shade, and some white. I don't remember, did we dull that down before? We did. We put a little bit of Pyrrole Red in there too to dull it down. But now we're gonna use more white and maybe more yellow because we wanna make a lime green that's gonna be a little bit brighter than this. And I like Hansa Yellow Opaque because it's an opaque yellow. And normally yellows are pretty transparent. So this is a yellow that gets the job done. Okay. So, well, this looks like a pretty nice bright green. Yeah, that's what I need. I like that. See how this green really stands out? I like it. I should probably have a smaller brush, but we are getting to the end of the demo here and I need to get this done, so. I think that this is kind of the icing on the cake here, having this nice green kind of piercing through all these other tones. And I want to put some up here just for the heck of it. I like this green. I'm adding a little bit extra of it because I think it's like separating the flowers from the background nicely. And yeah, we need to separate it from this big flower too. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of it right there, even though I don't see it bright green right there. Kind of using a little more of the colors that I like, just because. All right, let's go back and pull the whitest highlights on the daisy back out. And then I wanna go back into this flower and add a little bit more depth to that. So I'm gonna clean my brush really well, and I'm gonna go back in with just straight white. Find a clean spot on my palette. And yeah, we're just gonna go in with straight white and pull out the brightest petals, which this is the one that I see as the brightest, and see how much that stands out when we've got all those other ones built up. And I'm not gonna do this everywhere though. I'm only gonna do it on the brightest ones. So you gotta pick what your focus is. Decide what's most important. We'll put a couple over on this one. And I think I want to do some bright up here just to kind of tie the eye or pull the eye back a little bit. Got some bright coming in there. Not everywhere. Okay, I want to do some little pops of this kind of bright yellowy color here on the edges. So for that color, it was Hansa Yellow Opaque. If I can find a spot to put it that's clean. Hansa Yellow Opaque and a little bit of alizarin crimson and some white. Now I'm going to make it definitely lighter than what I had, and I'm gonna catch the edges. Yeah. See how that really glows on just a few of them, not all of them. And I'm probably gonna do a few more highlights than what I actually see, just because I want to be able to have a little more depth to this flower. That's getting there. Maybe put one right there. Okay. And you know, actually, this flower has some little pops of bright red, and we haven't done that. And I think that is going to look really good. I know we're getting close to the end here, but it's always these little bits at the end that really make it come together. So I always want to just kind of keep going. Okay, so this bright red, let's use Pyrrole Red Light. Mine's a little dirty. Pyrrole Red Light and a little bit of white. Just a tiny bit of white though. Mostly Pyrrole Red Light. And maybe that's all a little bit of alizarin crimson. We'll tone it down just a little bit. So Pyrrole Red Light, alizarin crimson, and white. And yeah, we'll just put a few little dashes on this. Just a bit to kind of give that some color. All right, I think I like that. Okay, last couple of little details here. I'm going to add some white and phthalo blue, just some little sparkles throughout, because I always really like what that does. So phthalo blue and white. And if you guys are enjoying this demo, would you please hit the share button? I always really appreciate it when you do that. It allows me to keep doing these for free for everybody. It helps more people to find me. So please share this demo. Just hit the share button. You can keep watching it. But I really appreciate it. Let's put some little highlights here on the vase. Right there, a little bit right there. We're gonna give that reflective quality to the vase. And then I'm gonna do a few of these little dashes around the flowers too, because I like to. And I think it kind of ties in with that blue underpainting that we had going. So it's easy to get a little carried away with this, but I like to just kind of add a little bit here and there. It also kind of just like gives some emphasis to the edges, which I think is kind of fun. Maybe up here I want to make it a bit darker. I'm going to add a little bit more phthalo blue and a little bit of glaze just to make it a little bit more of a dark blue. Phthalo blue and glaze. And yeah, we're going to just put a little dab of it around this one in the background. Ooh, I do like that. Yeah, that's fun. It's a bit more intense than what I normally use, but I think it works. I think it's good. All right, we are finished with this demo. Oh, you know what, guys? One more thing. Sorry, I can't help myself. I want to put a little bit of magenta in because there's this magenta flower in the background that I did not address at all, and I think that's going to look so good with some of the other colors. So I'm going to do magenta, quinacridone and magenta, and white. And I'm just going to pop some of this kind of nice deep magenta white color in the background. There, that's gonna look really good. Okay, we've got this flower here. Yeah, I like that. Kind of coming in from the background. Just need to get a little of that color and put a little more magenta in there. And we've got some up here too. And on this little bud. So maybe we'll put a little right here. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Do I want to put it anywhere else? Maybe right there, just for fun. Okay, now I promise we are actually done. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching this demo and for joining me. Thank you to everyone who has shared it. I really, really appreciate it when you share it. And I can't wait to see the pieces that you do. So if you created this piece with me, make sure you are in my group, Allie's Paint Friends, and share your piece there. That's where everybody shares their pieces, and it's really fun to see kind of the different ways that everybody approached the demo and to see the results. So you'll be able to see mine in there and everybody else's. All right, have a great night, guys. Happy painting, and I will see you next week. And don't forget to take advantage of my free eyes class. Get yourself signed up if you are not already. Go to my website, alliekstudio.com, and sign up for the free eyes mini class. All right, thank you for sharing, Dawn. Thank you, everyone. You guys have a great night.